March of Time.
Exactly 1 year ago today, Life, the magazine of pictures, published its first issue.
When Life began, it set out to report in pictures not only the news of the week, but the life of the world. Not only the faces of the great and the momentous dramatic happenings of the day, but the humble as well. The human significance of simple, everyday things. The fright of a lost child. The smile of a Negro. The glamour of the theater, the gaiety of a party. As Life celebrates its first birthday, Benny Goodman dedicates to Life a new sing and swing tune. Life goes to a party. Life in its first year has taken its cameras to 52 parties, from the most socialite to the humblest. And during the coming year, Life will go to 52 more parties and publish a picture story of each one. What they will be, a church sociable, a baby party, a New Orleans debutante's coming out, or perhaps a servant's party or a country auction, we do not know. Almost any kind of party is a candidate. You may be going to or giving the party which Life will want to attend. Don't decide yourself that your coming party is not a Life party. Write to us. Tell us about the coming party, the people, the music, the games. No matter where the party is or how simple, let Life's editors know about it. Life invites you to invite Life's photographers to your party.
Again tonight, the editors of Life join the editors of Time, the weekly news magazine, in presenting by radio the reenactment of memorable scenes from the news of the week.
From the March of Time. Through seas piled up mountainously by a driving gale off Cape Hatteras one night this week, the small freighter Zenit Chandras plows eastward, bound for Rotterdam with a cargo of scrap iron and cattle. In the radio room, third engineer Bortas Velasquez confronts the operator.
Got to send an SOS box. Cargo shifted. The water's pouring into the hold.
I can't send an SOS without the captain's orders.
Don't be a fool. Boat will be at the bottom of the Atlantic in half an hour.
I can't help it. I've got to wait for orders.
Send it.
Put on that knife.
Are you going to send it?
But I tell you,
Send it. Send out that SOS.
SOS. Freighter Zenit Chandras, foundering off Cape Hatteras with crew 29 and cargo of livestock and scrap iron. Position latitude 35 degrees 30 minutes. Longitude 75, sinking rapidly.
Coast Guard cutter Mendota reporting and proceeded to position given by freighter Zenit Chandras. Vessel apparently has gone down. Searched 4 hours. Found no trace of any survivors. Returning to port.
Hours later, driven far to the north of the area searched by the cutter Mendota, is a crowded lifeboat still afloat in the raging seas. An injured man lies propped against the engineer.
Hold up his head a little.
Water, please. Water. There isn't any water, old fellow. Look out! Hold on!
Boat won't stand many more of those. Too many people in it.
Bordes, listen. I want you to...
He's gone. Lay him in the bottom of the boat.
No. Throw him out.
But Bordes...
Boat's so crowded now, it's likely to turn over every time a wave hits us. Throw him out.
Well, all right.
Give me a hand.
Well?
Look.
What is it?
The body. Being pulled under.
Sharks!
Yes. Sharks. They're following us.
Atlantic east of Hatteras, glassy swells roll in the wake of a storm that has spent itself. A a white seaman's cap. The jagged splinters of a lifeboat hull bulged into the cold light. The carcass of a sheep drifts seaward with the swells. A gray-white triangular fin rises vertically from the water, is followed by another and another. Suddenly the water churns in a white froth of violence. A dozen yards away, two men clinging to a piece of planking watch with steady, unwavering gaze. The gray-white fins move lazily away, leaving in the whirling froth a few blobs of gray sheep's wool, a dark smear of blood on the sea surface. A lone man hanging in a life preserver paddles feebly with his free arm. The gray-white fins converge again. An empty life belt floats away. A thin plume of smoke drifts over the horizon. A vessel rolls slowly nearer through the swells. A lifeboat puts off.
All right, men. Get this one. Now. Get another arm.
Water, please.
One of you give him some water.
There's some others. There's still some others left.
This week, picked up alive by rescuing vessels are 21 of the 29 members of the crew of the freighter Zenit Zaris, foundered off the treacherous shoals of Cape Hatteras, a graveyard of the Atlantic. Latitude 35 degrees 30 minutes, longitude to 75. The very spot where the liner Vestris sank, with a loss of 111 lives just 9 years ago this week. Time marches on. Odawara, Japan. Fortnight ago, a fragile, white-haired old man lies propped up in bed, his thin hands lying on the coverlet as a doctor enters the bedroom.
Admiral Baron Sotokichi, how is my most distinguished patient today?
I am a very unhappy patient, Doctor.
So?
Oh, no. My pain is not for you to heal. My secretary has been reading news to me. Shingi, read the last again.
Japanese are being condemned in the American press, hissed in American theaters, and denounced from street corners and platforms. American sympathies with China are leading to widespread anti-Japanese boycotts.
Every day, Doctor, it is the same. American hatred saddens me.
It is unfortunate, yes, but Baron, for your own health, you must not disturb yourself over such things.
You do not understand, Doctor. Americans are my friends. I was educated there. I still have classmates.
I know, Baron. But you must rest.
The United States Naval Academy. My class of 1881. Why, they came all the way to be my guests here, in this very house. A reunion, 15 years ago. Let me see. There are still 25 of us living. Old. Like me, Doctor. Help me up, Shingi.
No.
Yes, I shall write my American friends.
I must warn you, Baron, this may mean...
My life? No matter. What little of it is left is my own.
This week, as it must to all men, death came to Admiral Baron Sotokichi Urio, Haiti. Last surviving Japanese graduate of the United States Naval Academy, class of 1881. Descendant of a long samurai line. Of a heart attack after writing a letter in defiance of his doctoral orders to his Annapolis classmates, defending Japan's course of empire in China. And this week has estimated the cost to Japan of her 3 months Chinese campaign. Already more than the entire Russo-Japanese War of 33 years ago. A war which made Japan a first-class power. A war which made Sotokichi Urio an admiral, a national hero, and the most distinguished of all his fellows in the class of 1881.
My old friends, you who knew me and remember me from 60 years ago, you must know that I could not ask you to withhold your judgment of my country unless I myself believed her cause was just. You must believe the mission of Japan is peace.
Time marches on. Washington, D.C. One morning a few weeks ago, in a pet shop on Washington's Connecticut Avenue, a distinguished gray-haired man of medium height stoops to pet the head of a large St. Bernard dog while a clerk looks on.
That's a good boy. That's a fine fellow. How much is he?
He's $100, sir.
Fine-looking animal.
Oh, yes, sir. He's a thoroughbred.
Fine, I'll take him.
Yes, sir. And what is your address?
Oh, my card. General Smedley Butler of the United States Marine Corps.
Oh, yes, General Butler.
Now, $100, you say. I'll give you a check. Oh, sir, do you mind if I make a check for $150? I'm short of cash.
Well, I think we can give you the cash, General Butler. Glad to accommodate you, sir.
A few days later, in a New York art shop.
These old ship prints are very rare, sir.
Yes. My family is very fond of ships. You can just send them, if you will, to Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Franklin D. Roosevelt?
Franklin III. One of the cousins, you know. Now, the pictures are $100. Do you mind if I make the check for $150?
Not at all, Mr. Roosevelt.
He's a mighty fine horse. Cheap at $800.
You can ship him to me at my estate at Wilmington, estate of Alfred DuPont.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to make the check for $850. Is that all right?
Absolutely, Mr. DuPont. Any amount you want.
You know, old China is a hobby of mine. Now, the check, I'm going to make it out for an extra $50. I'm Henry Ford.
Well, Mr. Ford, I guess we don't have to worry about your check.
This week in the New York courtroom of U.S. Commissioner Garrett W. Cotter.
Will the clerk please read the charges?
Federal Court of New York. Charges of impersonation of federal officials and others, of forgery and fraud, are hereby preferred against one Frederick E. Peters, alias Alfred E. Smith, alias George Bernard Shaw, alias Ulysses S. Grant III, alias William Randolph Hearst, alias Charles Evans Hughes, alias Woodrow Wilson Jr., alias John Jacob Astor, alias John Johnson.
This week into custody at last comes the kindly distinguished gray-haired man who for 30 years has evaded police in 13 states and 2 cities, whose impersonations of the great and near great have cost U.S. merchants unknown thousands. One for Frederick E. Peters, the title of the nation's most extraordinary impersonator. This week, making a rare appearance under his own name and held in $15,000 bail to face a 30-year sentence, comments impersonator Peters.
I suppose it had to happen someday, but I'm sorry Mom had to find out.
And says a relative of Frederick Peters in Ohio.
We're sorry to hear Frederick's in trouble, but we're glad to know he's alive. Not long ago, Fred's ma got a telegram saying he was dead and asking for money to bury him. If you ask me, old Fred sent that telegram himself.
1937 marches on. One evening this week, shortly after 5 o'clock, in a dreary apartment at 275 Driggs Avenue, Brooklyn, Mrs. Harold Scholler and 5 of her children are sitting around an oilcloth table, finishing a dinner of oatmeal and grapes, as 13-year-old William Scholler comes in.
Sit down, William.
Where'd the food come from? How'd we get it?
Quit worrying all the time.
Harold sold his overcoat.
Eat, William. Eat.
Can I have some more, Mama?
Oh, Jimmy.
Harold got $1 for his coat.
It's so warm you don't need a coat.
William, you aren't eating. What's wrong with you?
Oh, the fella gave me a hot dog this afternoon. I ain't hungry.
I am.
William, look at me. What's the matter with you? Quiet? Not hungry?
I'm all right. Honest, it's just that a fella I know, a fella at school, was treating everybody this afternoon, and I guess I ate too much. That's it. I ate too much.
That night, 8 hours later, William Troller stands alone in the darkness of the dining room. Against the yellow wall, a streetlight silhouettes his drawn, white face, slow movements of his lips.
Harry sold his coat. Wasn't enough to eat, though. Not even when he sold his coat. Sold his coat.
The shadow moves along the wall. William Troller reaches into the kitchen cupboard, takes down a coil of clothesline.
Harry had to sell his coat. This ain't hard to do. $1 was all they give him. Not enough for Ma and Betty, Ruth, Tommy, Grace, for Harry's coat, for a coat.
William Troller is standing on a chair by the dining room door, tying the clothesline to a transom, tying a knot on the rope.
It won't hurt. I won't feel it. I won't even know.
William? Is that you, William?
Mom heard me.
William? What are you doing out there?
I wish I could, but I can't. I guess I better do it now. Now.
I thought I heard William come in. Wonder what that noise was.
Sounded like a chair falling over.
Light a match, Grace. I'll go see.
Here.
Willie.
William!
This week, 85 million report cards go out through the United States in an effort to obtain accurate data which will provide jobs for the U.S. unemployed. But the ray of hope the report cards hold reaches 275 Driggs Avenue, Brooklyn, too late for the family of 13-year-old William Troller, who this week hanged himself to the transom of a dining room door. Time marches on. Political and economic fronts, up and down the land since August 1937.
General Motors 38, off 17 points to year's low. U.S. Steel 53, off 68. Bonds continuing to break. Security.
Steel production at 48% of capacity, a 44% drop since May. Lumber output off 24% since 1936. Freight car loading.
Lawrence, Massachusetts. Pacific Print Works, largest textile mill of its kind in the U.S. Shuts down. 30,000 out of work. Others preparing to follow suit.
Steel production down 42%. Employment in automobile industry down 5%. Little Steel lays off 185,000 workers in a single 10-day period.
Such is the business recession of 1937. And this week in the United States Congress, assembled in special session, the clerk reads a message from the President of the United States. Its preamble:
important measures are already pending, but other matters will require early consideration. For since your adjournment in August, there has been a marked recession in industrial production and industrial purchases.
On big businessmen, once belabored by Franklin Roosevelt as economic royalists, says the Roosevelt recession message of this week.
During the adjournment of the Congress, I have sought to avail myself of the wisdom and advice of managers of large industrial and financial enterprise.
On the unemployed, once called by Franklin Roosevelt the forgotten men whom government must help, says the Roosevelt recession message of this week.
The continuance of recovery and the elimination of unemployment in the United States depends far more on business policies than it does upon anything that may be done or not done by the government in Washington.
On New Deal capital and business taxes, once defended by Franklin Roosevelt as a means to redistribution of the wealth, says the Roosevelt recession message of this week.
Tax modifications adequate to encourage productive enterprise should be given special consideration. Our immediate task is to try to increase the use of private capital to create employment and higher levels of industrial activity.
This week, digesting the President's message, Congress goes into feverish activity. The Senate filibusters for 2 days on the pre-recession social reform. To the floor for quick action goes a bill to repeal the most famed of New Deal taxes on business, the corporate surplus tax. But at week's end, still the biggest news story in Washington is a reversal of principles by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, outlining a new New Deal program in the face of the recession of 1937, whose nearest analogy is the 1932 Depression program of Herbert Clark Hoover. Time marches on. Bath, England. On the 7-acre estate of Fairfield, in a 14-room Georgian house one day this week, 2 British reporters pay a visit to a dark-skinned, cadaverous-faced little man with bushy black beard, who still styles himself Emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie I.
Pray be seated, gentlemen.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
The room is chilly, I know, but I am sorry.
You know our English autumns by now, Your Majesty. One needs a fire in November.
Alas, we can no longer afford fires in any room but the nursery. But really, gentlemen, we like it here. When I sell the house, we shall be sorry to leave. It is a little crowded, but less so than before, without my cousin's family.
Then, Ross Cussa is no longer with you?
Oh, quite near. You see, since I am going to sell my automobile, we were able to convert the garage for his family to live in. And then my son, Makonnen, and my daughter, Sahai, they are both away.
Yes, I understand the Duke of Harrar is enrolled at King's College, Staunton.
Yes, he was fortunate to obtain a scholarship. My daughter is in a nurse's training school in London and will, we hope, find a place in the world. We are adapting ourselves, you see.
The Ethiopian Association is collecting a fund, I believe.
I am afraid not, gentlemen. My appeal to the world for my distressed country has failed to bring even enough for my personal needs.
Nothing from your lawsuits?
No, but as you may have heard, Mussolini offered me rather a tempting sum to abandon my claims before the League of Nations, but I did not accept. I could not accept, gentlemen.
When you sell this estate, Your Majesty, where will you go?
I do not know, gentlemen.
Time marches on. This week, as the world learns of the final humiliation of the exiled monarch who once looked to Britain to save his nation from Italian invasion, Britons are honoring their countrymen who died in a crusade of 20 years ago when Britain hoped to save the world. In London's Whitehall, through crowds massed solemnly around the cenotaph to Britain's war dead, King George VI, in the olive-drab uniform of a field marshal, is escorted by a guard of honor. Then, alone, bearing a wreath, he mounts the steps of the memorial, places the wreath, and descends to stand beside the robed and mitred Archbishop of Canterbury. Big Ben sounds the hour of 11.
In the name of the living, who today honor you, the dead, in eternal gratefulness, I, their King, salute the peace which, so dearly won, we hold sacred to your memory.
Lord, thou hast been our refuge from one generation to another. Before the mountains were brought forth, wherever the earth and the world were made, thou art God from everlasting, world without end. Thou turnest man to destruction. Again thou sayest, come again, ye children of men.
With all the empire, we who are gathered here will now observe 2 minutes of silence in reverence of the dead.
Stop! Stop! Stop it! The dead are all right. You cannot do anything for them. But what about the living, millions of us, who don't have enough to eat?
Grab him, quick, get his arms, might have a gun.
No, let me go. Why don't you stop all this hypocrisy? You know you're deliberately preparing another war. Stop it!
In Britain this week, arrested for creating a disturbance during a memorial service to the dead, returned to Cane Hill Lunatic Asylum, whence he escaped 6 weeks ago, is one John Story. But this week in Britain's House of Commons...
Mr. Speaker, Her Majesty's Secretary of State for Home Affairs, Sir Samuel Hoare.
Gentlemen, I ask your leave to introduce a new bill. It is a bill to protect our citizens from air raids in time of war. I am quite ready to answer any and all questions from the floor. But first, let me point out that during the World War, 300 tons of bombs were dropped on the British Isles in the space of 4 years. That many bombs can be dropped now in 24 hours.
May I respectfully ask the Home Secretary, what is being done to protect buildings in congested areas, such as London?
There is virtually no protection against a direct hit. But to protect our citizens against the blast and splinters of explosives, individual families will be equipped with arrangements for a refuge room in their own homes. An inside room reinforced with cement bags is about the cheapest method.
What about protection against incendiary bombs?
A medium-sized plane can start no less than 150 fires in a single raid. There is, of course, no fire protection of such scope. However, we hope to furnish families with a hand pump, a shovel, and a box of sand.
Does the Home Secretary assume that Britain will shortly be at war?
I have not said so. But, gentlemen, let us face the facts. London is now less than an hour by air from the continent. If Britain goes to war, we cannot hope to escape for long the type of warfare which has been carried to the citizens of Madrid and of Shanghai. If Britain goes to war, there may be much, perhaps everything, to rebuild.
Time marches on. Just 1 year ago tomorrow, the first issue of Life, the new magazine of pictures, appeared throughout the United States. Life's purpose, then and now.
To see life, to see the world, to eyewitness great events.
In this, Life's first year, millions of American men, women, and children, more millions than we dared hope when life began, have stirred to that strangely compelling desire to see, to know, to be informed. Life's purpose is today unchanged. But between Life's first issue, dated November 23rd, 1936, and its 53rd issue, out tomorrow, there is a salient difference. For during this year, news pictures have burst their dams and flooded a new informing force over the world. The coronation, the sit-down strikes, the Hindenburg crash, Shanghai, the wars abroad, the politics at home. This year has been reported in pictures as no other year has ever been before. So today, Life celebrates its first birthday with grateful acknowledgement to the men who take news pictures everywhere, and who have made Life's 53rd issue more stimulating to the eye, more quickening to the mind, more pictorially informative than its first could be.
And grateful, too, is Life's acknowledgement to U.S. amateur photographers who, in ever-increasing numbers, have been sending the editors their best pictures. The best pictures of the Hindenburg disaster, the best pictures of an East Texas oil well fire, were taken by amateurs. But so were hundreds of others that were published in Life, of humble faces, of babies, of dogs, of science, of fun, of families. Pictures that reveal the whole fabric of today's living. That's the kind of pictures Life wants. It has published over 2,000 amateur photographs in its first year, and Life wants more of them. So we invite you to send us your most interesting photographs. Let us look at them. If not used, they'll be promptly returned. And for every amateur picture it prints, Life will pay at least $5. Send your pictures to Life, Chrysler Building, New York.
Life's first anniversary issue is on sale at newsstands tomorrow. If you do not see it, may we suggest you ask your news dealer for it. If you have reserved your copy, your news dealer will have it for you tomorrow, Friday morning. Time marches on.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.